This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
This episode of the Fandalorian Podcast is brought to you by the Adler Real Estate Team. If you live in New York, anywhere between Manhattan and Montauk, and are looking to buy or sell, you need to call the Adler Real Estate Team. This real estate company is run by a husband and wife duo that, in addition to being real estate agents, are also a public school teacher and a police officer. It is a family-run business that gives you the attention and care you need when you are about to make one of the most important decisions of your life. And I know from experience. Also, if you mention that you are a fan of the Fandalorians, they will be able to get you up to $2,000 back at closing. It doesn't matter if you are buying or listing. So, if you are buying or selling anywhere from Manhattan to Montauk, call the Adler Real Estate Team at 631-384-6372. Or check out the website at adlerrealestateteam.com. Mention the Fandalorians and save today.
Welcome back, class. On today's episode, we have a quick pop-in to Star Wars Acolyte with not one, but two special guests. All this and more in The Acolyte, Does Star Wars Have a Problem? Episode of The Fandalorians, Teachers by Day, Nerds by Night.
That is the bell. Class is in session. Welcome to Fandalorians Podcast, Teachers by Day, Nerds by Night, proud part of the Unfiltered Studios podcasting network. This is continues to be the number one public school teacher pop culture fandom podcast in the country. Here to give you all the latest news in the worlds of entertainment, all of the worlds, guys.
The multiverse of entertainment.
Multiverse, yeah. Lively discussion on all matters of pop culture and fandom. We have a nice topic to discuss today, but we do get new listeners all the time, so let me introduce ourselves. But we're going to go relatively quick. I'm Mr. Richardson. It's me, Mr. McDonald, Mr. G. Two guests today. Music teacher and friend, Mr. Trevor Hewitt is back for his second appearance. Hello, Trevor. How you doing?
Number two. I think you're 4 away from the record.
Yeah, I'm trying to go for it. That's my master plan.
You got to think big. Don't lose that confidence. Don't lose it. And the owner of the Red Shirt Comics shop, the official comic book shop of the Fandalorians, because 2 out of 3 of us have been in there. So that's enough of a percentage.
Well, I drove past. Does that count?
Yeah, I know. You know what?
It does for me.
No, I slowly drove past, and I gave one of those head nods, but not the head nod down, the head nod up, where you're like, hey, what's up?
Yeah. Then, you know what? Then we're going to count that. But the owner is here, Josh Darby. Hey, man, how you doing?
Not bad, not bad. It is also my second time on the show.
Uh-oh. Oh, I sense a competition.
It is the duel of the fates.
Exactly.
Ooh.
You know, I was racking my brain for like, there's definitely a thing for this. Duel. What's a duel? And then you got it before me.
That was good. All right, we have a lot to talk about, but let me quickly run through the things that matter. We're going to support the show. Well, we have a new place to support. Listen, guys, this is important. One of our new sponsors, Mr. Madonna, I need to tell you about this, is Genuine Collision Repair. Here's the deal. My car got hit. I was parked. Someone fell asleep and hit my car. It's been chaotic. But this company is wonderful. Working with them is great, and they have gone every step of the way to help me get my car back to the way it should be. So I mention them all the time from now on. They're actually great people on 112 in Medford. If you're on Long Island, you have a car accident, you don't know what to do, you're panicking, you call your insurance company, and then you need a place to kind of put your car back together. Legit, very nice people. And they really helped us out.
So what you're saying, Mr. Richardson, is they Humpty Dumpty'd your car back together?
Yes, they did. They completely Humpty Dumpty'd my car back together. Wonderful people. We're going to be mentioning them moving forward because they're really nice. And that's it. I'm a nice guy. They give back. They help me.
So this really isn't like an ad. This is just a really awesome place that you just want to shout out.
Yeah,
I'm all for it. He's
I'm
paying it forward.
I'm paying it
Yeah,
forward.
absolutely.
other ways you can support the show, other than if your car gets wrecked and you go someplace. Ask your teachers if you need anything. We know the school year is almost winding down for some of you. The last couple of weeks, maybe they want something, maybe they need something, maybe they need some boxes. You know what? Your kid has annoyed these people long enough. Get them a $10 gift card to Dunkin'. You know your baby. Your baby ruined this. This person has gray hair now. They are losing it. And maybe they're counting down the days to get rid of your kid. Not me, not the kids in my class, but I'm sure you know your baby drives them nuts. Give them a Dunkin' Donuts gift card. Give them $5 and say, listen, I appreciate you dealing with this nonsense. And now I have to do it all summer. And bring them tissues for the crying on the last day.
Well, the parents are about to get the reckoning. Now, the reckoning is when the kids are home for 10 weeks. And they're like, teachers are amazing. How do they handle this?
This is ridiculous. And check out our merch on the TeePublic link. The link is on the storefront The link to our storefront is in the bio of the show. And as always, all the proceeds go to Lainey's Legacy of Hope, which is a nonprofit organization that engages in fundraising and activities to provide assistance to families with someone who's suffering from pediatric cancer. Volunteer run, no CO, no board, 100% of the money goes to them. You buy our merch, our money goes to them. And finally, if you live on Long Island, we mentioned it before, you want to check out Red Shirt Comics in downtown Port Jeff Village for all your comic needs. Don't just drive by, actually go in the store.
Yeah, actually go inside.
Go inside. The Darby's nice, man. Go inside. And for the listeners who don't live in the area, just get a plane, fly out here to go to the comic shop. But assuming you don't want to do that, local comic shops, check them out, support them. That's what we got to do. All right, taking care of the business. Mr. Hewitt wrote a wonderful jingle for a late assignment. When we have late assignments, this isn't a late assignment really, because this last episode 3, came out a few days ago. But because he's here and he's staring with his judgy eyes, we're going to play that song anyway. And then when it's over, we're going to talk some Star Wars Acolyte.
So we have an early late assignment.
Yes, early. You know what? Let's say it was due on Tuesday, and today's Friday when we're recording, so it's late. You would take off points, right, McDonald?
Oh, I stopped taking off points for lateness a long time ago.
Oh,
I'm just happy when they turn it in. My expectations are quite low.
Run the jingle.
Ugh, it's so late! Mandalorian life has got me so busy. Podcasting all the time is making me dizzy. Teaching by day, nerding by night. How am I supposed to get this thing right? I'm down on bended knee. I know I had 3 weeks. Please accept it, please, with my sincerity.
Well, is there extra credit?
Star Wars, The Acolyte. I just want to say it powerful, but I didn't. It's set at the end of the Star Wars franchise's High Republic era, approximately 100 years before Phantom Menace. It sees a respected Jedi Master investigate a series of crimes that bring him into contact with a former Padawan learner and reveal sinister forces. I didn't write this myself. It premiered on Disney Plus on June 4th with its first 2 episodes, and the following 6 episodes are going to be released weekly. The series received positive and negative reviews from critics, a lot to discuss. Now, we're only doing, obviously, the first 3 episodes. That's all we've seen so far, so we're not going to dig it deep into this as we will if the series was over. But we're going to talk a little bit about our thoughts so far in this kind of abbreviated episode. Okay, I just got a couple prompts to get through first. We've all seen the first 3 episodes. What are your thoughts and what have you enjoyed the most about this show so far?
Personally, I enjoy it. I think it's all of the recognizable tropes of Star Wars. It's the Jedi, it's lightsabers, it's, spaceships zipping around, it's speeders, it's weird urban, settings, it's desolate, remote planets, lots of different environments. It's everything you recognize about Star Wars without a hint of Skywalker, without any of the really bogged down, super heavy, overdone stories that we've seen before. There's definitely some things that I think could be improved, but overall, I really just have no complaints. It's just it's a fun, interesting, take on this, very, very explored world.
I'm actually going to put my rubber stamp of approval on that message because I actually feel the same way. I'm enjoying it, and for exactly what Josh said, it to me personally, it's Star Wars, recognizable at Star Wars. I wouldn't walk past and think that it's Star Trek or some other new thing. To me, it has that Star Wars feel of all those things that Josh mentioned.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the person who's gonna absolutely agree as well. I see a lot of like everybody said so far, the traditional Star Wars themes are there. I like the fact that we're getting a different look at the Jedi since it's during the High Republic era. We're looking at them when they're like the sheriff in town. They're there. They're part of the environment around them. There's Jedi temples throughout the galaxy. We're not just like reduced to like the main one on Coruscant and a couple here and there. They're everywhere. So the Jedi are part of everybody. And just getting a fresh look at the galaxy from a different time period, it just really gives me the idea that, okay, this is new. We're not beholden to anything except, they're tying into the existing High Republic novels and comic books. So there's something there, but for the casual watcher who's coming in on it, you don't need all of that. You just, oh, this is Star Wars. Okay. Oh, it happened. And like they give you the title card at the beginning of the first episode. Hey, this takes place 100 years before the Phantom Menace. There's some different things going on in the galaxy. This is what we got. I'm really liking it so far.
Jimmy, you go, then I'll go.
It's gonna hurt me that if all five of us completely agree on this. But none of it is manufactured, so I have to agree with everything I've heard so far, which is usually weird for me because I'm obviously negative about everything. Specifically, not to just repeat what you guys just said. It's different. It's a different time period. I like how they're different. And I've talked to people and things. I've seen things online, like the first opening scene with the martial arts fighting. That was brilliant for me because you know what? 100 years ago, people fought differently than they do today.
Mm-hmm.
So for them that could be a focused part of being a Jedi, as in hand-to-hand combat was a bigger deal, how to handle that situation, where in later years or the years we're accustomed to being part of it, really wasn't hand-to-hand combat, wasn't really part of a thing that they focused on during training. Back then, like you said, they're sheriffs, they're peacekeepers. All right, hand-to-hand combat's a bigger thing to deal with.
Yeah, think about how we fought 100 years ago.
I like that it was a mystery focus, a different time. I love the fact that these witches referred to the Force as something different. There's like, what is it? 42,000 religions on Earth,
mm-hmm.
and they don't all refer to something as God. So for them to be into the Force, but call it something differently because that's what they refuse it, I'm actually good with that aspect of it as well.
I would like to point out that the mother, she and the daughters are unique in that they are Force users. The witchcraft that they are participating in is something separate than the Force. This has been established in the cartoons. The Witches of Dathomir, they're doing this is actually something I'm kind of excited about because I never felt like the witchcraft stuff from the animated Star Wars fit very well with the Force. Like they didn't knit together. It didn't make sense to me how you could have two very opposing methodologies, in this kind of broad mythology. This, however, especially the way they're talking about the Force, the way that they were talking about the way it integrates with their practices, it felt like they're finally kind of going to explain and examine that a little bit more, that we'll get to see how, the Force isn't the end all be all of everything, that there is something beyond just what the Jedi explore. There's something beyond what, the council will allow to be taught within the temple. And because that really makes it more interesting in terms of, the Jedi have access to the Force in a way that the average person doesn't, but maybe the average person has access to this witchcraft. Yeah. Maybe the average person has access to power but the knowledge is what's kept from everyone, and that's part of what being a Jedi. We're going to get to see an institutionalized Jedi order, where it's about, maintaining a status quo as opposed to actually trying to tear down, this evil empire, the whole franchise.
All right, Josh, I want to go back to something you just said, and in what you're talking about, the magic and the Force, and it comes back to D&D with the idea that in Dungeons and Dragons there is two types of magic, and there is magic that's wielded through divine powers, which is granted to you by your god, which is like the Force. It's the divine. But then there's the arcane magic, which is, magic like Harry Potter magic. It's two separate magics created. Well, it's the same magic. It accesses the weave, but it's accessed like two different ways.
Yeah.
So the Force is like you're talking about. I was like, the Force is this. And then there's the witches have this magic, and it's
both of them
magic.
can exist.
Air quotes, it's both magic, but it's different.
Yeah, but Force.
She actually said we call it some may call it the Force. We refer to it as a thread, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast on ramps. Having not seen, I did see the Clone Wars and everything like that, but I'm saying I always go through my father's eyes. If you have no knowledge of any of that, and you didn't read the books of the High Republic, you have nothing about it. It basically points out that the Force exists. These people also use the Force. They refer to it as something different. They refer to it as the threat.
Yeah.
And for me watching and doing that prism, okay, I can buy that. That's why I was connecting to religion. I can buy different religions. It's all the same thing, but they refer to it as something different. Now, will they dig deeper into it that we kind of know from the animated series? Or, as Josh put it out, kind of clean up what they didn't really do well in the animated series? Fine. But I can get behind the idea that the same thing exists, but some people don't all refer to it as the same, which makes sense.
Yeah,
as well. McDonald, I know you didn't get to go about what you liked yet, though.
This brings me back to peak Marvel, because when Marvel was doing things right, what they always did is they made a Marvel movie through the lens of a genre that we were very familiar with. So it would be like Winter Soldier was like a spy espionage, where Ant-Man was a heist movie, and all those kind of tropes then that go along with that. And I feel like this is what Star Wars is trying to do, and I think they're doing it pretty well, because this really is a cop show.
Yes.
And that's the basic idea. And, Mr. Richardson, I think you said it's a mystery. And it is a mystery, but it is not the mystery I thought it was going to be.
Right. It's not as much a whodunit, it's a why-done-it.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I like it. A whodunit, you're like, okay, you can only go so long. But a why-done-it, it's like an ogre or an onion. It's got many layers.
yeah.
I also like the fact that they present a mystery to you, like, all right, did Osha do it? Is she the murderer? And then they don't waste any time. They let you know right away. Nope, it wasn't her.
Right, because at first you were like, "Does she have two personalities?" They're like, "No, it's two sisters." It
they
definitely
didn't drag
is two
that
sisters.
for episode.
Yeah, and so that was solved by like the end of the first episode, and then the second episode they start dipping their toes into the why, and then the third they give you the real in depth of the sisters' relationship, and the last time they saw each other before that, and so there's a lot of meat on the bone there for them to pick apart and to kind of story tell. But, there are also some flaws in this as well, which is what we're going to talk about next, right, Mr. Richardson?
Your transition was incredible. Well done. All right. Is there anything you disliked or questioned about the show so far? A couple things where you're just like, I need to know, McDonald.
All right. I'll take this one as well. There's two things that I kind of disliked. One is a trope that happens all the time, anytime you have twins. My biggest problem is when you have twins, especially that haven't seen each other in years, and they have the exact same haircut. Like, that's just laziness, I feel like.
Well, they
To
had
be
to make
fair,
it
though,
so,
they
like,
had the
they would
same
be
haircut when they were
confused.
kids, though.
Yeah, but guess what? I've had haircuts when I was a kid. I had a bowl haircut. I still don't have a bowl haircut. Not that the listeners would know.
I'm going to Star Wars this, and I'm just going to say Han Solo wore the same outfit for 60 years.
You know what?
Well, that's very true. You know what? All right, okay, I'll walk that one back.
Yeah, I had the hairstyle down, McDonald. I won't pretend that you were alone on it, but yeah, he just checkmated. That's true.
Yeah.
They don't change their clothes.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a brand.
Right. Well, I guess so. Yes. And then my second pet peeve, and it's a small, but it was a really bothersome pet peeve. And tell me if I'm the only one who thought this, but in episode 3, the two actresses that played the twins, I thought they were terrible.
I don't want to hate on child actors.
I agree, but
I agree with you, because I've thought to myself, especially with the dialogue and stuff. And I'm like, I feel like I watch way more. We see or don't see, but there's way more like Star Wars children in the animated series.
Mhm.
Like if you watch like basically all of Clone Wars, you have Ahsoka who's a kid, and they always meet other kids and all these kids, and then you have
And they're usually voiced by
Rebel,
adults.
but they're voiced
Wow.
by adults.
They're voiced by
And I was thinking to myself, those kids aren't terrible actors, but they're voiced
look
by
at the
adults.
Princess Leia
Mhm.
in the Obi-Wan series. She was amazing.
She was lightning in a bottle. How
Yeah, she
hard
was.
is it to replicate that? You're
And
talking
then you have
like,
to have it times 2.
yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I actually don't think they were that bad, and I will come to their defense a bit in terms of I think they got the Jake Lloyd treatment. So Jake Lloyd is the young actor who played Anakin in The Phantom Menace, and his dialogue was absolute garbage.
Yes.
And then on top of that, George Lucas's direction was probably made it 10 times worse. Not to say that the director of The Acolyte, I believe it was a woman, was bad. I just think the dialogue specifically is a little bit clunky, and it was a little sparse. So it was like they were every time they were delivering a line, it felt like they were like one line ahead of the rest of the actors.
Yeah,
Like they're
My
trying to be
complaint,
curious children peeking around, their, the rest of the coven. I felt like there was a line missing, like they had skipped a line and just kind of jumped ahead. It just felt like the dialogue just did them no justice and gave them no opportunity to really emote.
the one thing that bothered me about their performance is I didn't get a good sense of who was who, because the way
Between the
that they,
sisters we're talking about?
yeah, the sisters,
Yeah.
because they would deliver a line and it was confusing. That I usually don't do this, but I had to actually rewind it and watch it with the subtitles on, so I knew who was saying what line. And then all of a sudden, oh, that makes sense, because I was like, well, why is she talking about that, and why?
So the inflection was too similar. You're right. In terms of
Mhm.
like, if you had your eyes closed, it sounded so even keel that despite the fact that they were saying, things of opposite sentiment, it sounded like they were coming from the same mouth.
You want evil things said eviler?
No, you
No,
just
they
need-
weren't
it's
evil.
it's
They
more
were just a
direction.
different perspective.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I want to stay here and I want to fulfill Mother's legacy. Well, I want to go off and I want to explore the world. But if you say it in the exact same pitch, at the exact same cadence, which I mean, it's gonna unfortunately happen when you have twins like that. I have twins. There are boy-girl twins, so it's not quite as even. But there's definitely like a cadence that you just can't help but fall into, and I feel like that's
Wait,
not
do
their
they ever
fault.
talk at the same time like Children of the Corn?
No.
Okay, good.
Thank God, we're safe. Here's what I would say. Again, I've done plays with kids, but nothing to this level. But there needs to be a beat after someone says something so someone can react to it. They skipped most reactions from, like, when the one twin says, I want to say it with mother. The other one needs to just almost have a second, like, almost take a
Just
half
give 'em a
step
look.
back.
Sure,
Even just a note back and just wait a minute.
But that's not the
and
kid.
then react. That's what you need to direct them to do. Because
Yes,
if the lines
exactly.
are
That's
clunky,
what you need to direct them to do. So
right?
it's
If
not
the lines are
actually the
clunky,
kids,
you
it's
can
the adult
still
in the room.
Yeah, that's
And
adult.
the
It's always the
editing.
adult. I never like to go after the kids, because I know there needs to be an adult in the room to say, okay, do it again, but wait to count 1,000, 2,000 in your head, lean in, lean out, then say it. That way you add, like, you're reacting to what they said to you.
Yeah.
Now you're coming back at them instead of line, which is what pretty much they did every time they talked to each other. And that's what I felt was missing when they
Even if
Bring out the exposition twins.
Even if you're 19 years old, right, and you get a job in Star Wars and it's your first real big break, the reality is that 19-year-old has likely been acting since they were like 7, whether it be children's theater, school stuff. Like, that's 12 years of experience. When you take 10-year-olds, and give them their big break and put them into Star Wars, they've got 3 years of like very minimal experience, and so it really does you have to edit around them. You have to give them that direction. You have to have the acting coach on set to give you all those different takes, to be like, try it again this way, try it again this way, try it again this way. And yeah, you might burn a little bit of extra time, but damn, like, it's gonna look at what they did with Stranger Things. Just look, like, I will
But
always
that's
look
what
at
I don't get. It's like you can watch a Nickelodeon show, like, you know, a Disney show that's meant for kids, and you're not sitting there being like, wow, these kids are terrible actors. And
Well,
like, once again, I don't want to say that they're terrible actors, because we do know it's that the adults
It's
know
all
the
expression.
direction. But
They're
it's
saying
like,
they
I don't
can do it.
understand how you can watch Stranger Things. You can watch Victorious. You can watch these shows that don't, the dialogue isn't so like terrible.
Wouldn't? No, but I also think that's a symptom of Star Wars in general, because I remember, you know, watching the prequels,
Yeah.
and you hear Anakin and you hear Padme, and you're like, this dialogue is so wooden sometimes.
Mhm.
oh God, it was a totem pole. It was horrible.
Everything
I think a lot
Samuel
of
Jackson
people-
said came off cool, and some of it was wooden too. So, like you said before, if you have an actor who has experience, you can
Yeah.
take trash and turn it into something. But with little kids, you have to rely on either an actor in the scene who can help them along, or a
But
director or someone else. That's all I'm thinking. And you know, they're not going to be here anymore, right? I doubt we're going to see the kids anymore after this episode as much, because now we're cutting back to the future. So they got him in. They were probably like, "Listen, we got 3 days. Just get him to get the lines down. We got to keep it moving." Even though it is a pivotal episode for what this is all about. But I don't know.
But tell me, if A New Hope came out tomorrow, right? There is no Star Wars, and it comes out tomorrow, and Mark Hamill's performance, that people wouldn't just absolutely nuke it.
They would eat
Oh,
him
but I
alive.
wanted to go to Tashi Station and pick up some power converters.
Mhm.
It's a terrible line. It's delivered in like way
Whiny.
overdone, and it's
And if you
cheesy
look at-
and corny. But we loved it back then.
Yeah.
We
And
just
if you
have
look
a
at
totally different standard, but it fits within the world.
Yep, and like Princess Leia, you know, sliding back and forth between an English accent and an American accent. It's like,
Oh yeah.
you know,
There's so many performances in the original Star Wars trilogy that are just, I mean, frankly, amateurish, but we love it because it's fun, and and there are so many kind of looser moments where you really just get to let these stars shine. And so I think trying to hold any Star Wars thing to Academy Award level performances is just always going to be, a losing battle. You just
I would say
never
Academy. I would say Victorious at least. And I feel like it wasn't even there.
Victorious.
Don't you
Who else
dare
has
say anything
something
bad
else
about
they-
Victorious.
Oh, that's a great show. I'm saying get to that level at least. Who else has something they dislike
have-
about this?
Like, I had a minor thing about what I didn't like about this show, is I honestly feel like it should have been more than 100 years separation. And
Interestingly enough, the High Republic era is a significant amount of time, and they chose to put this story towards the end of it.
I
So,
think it should have been more.
so it's like it. I think the High Republic era extends like another 100 years behind this. There's been 3
Yeah.
different phases so far. I haven't really been reading.
I just
the comics.
feel like my
Yeah.
biggest thing about what people, the people are complaining online about is how this minimized Anakin as being the chosen one and the prophecy and all of that. And I'm just like, there's only one prophecy in the millennial infinite amount of time?
And the other thing
That's
is,
what I don't get.
the other
I
thing,
don't get that argument. I'm sorry. I just don't
How does
understand that
How
argument.
does it minimize Anakin's role?
I don't know. That's what people on
Because
the
there's no
internet
father for these
about.
kids.
the complaint going around is the fact that because they were,
created
like,
by the Force.
created
Anakin's not special.
by the
anymore.
Force, that Anakin's not, and how could he be the chosen one if someone else,
I
if
don't-
these other kids were developed through the Force?
I
But
don't take it that way.
But when they talk, yeah, I agree. If you look at what is said in the council room, when Qui-Gon goes before the council, and he says, "I believe that this child was formed by the midichlorians." No one ever says that's never happened before. The only thing that says is Mace Windu says centered around a human. That's it. He doesn't say this has never happened before. And the other thing is
Maury. Where's Maury?
in the comics where they talk about the Anakin being developed through the Force, it's the Force, the midichlorians coming together to create Anakin. But Mother Anastasia says, no, it's Mother Quarrel says to Mother Anastasia, you, or whoever said it, I made it happen.
Yeah.
So she manipulated the
Yeah,
Force.
they talked about
herself.
one carried them, but the other one made them.
Yes.
Yeah. There's definitely some literal witchcraft going on. So.
Yeah.
And as you know, like I personally believe absolutely it doesn't take anything away from Anakin, because it's not the prophecy wasn't about twins coming forth to create balance in the Force. It's about one coming forward to create balance in the Force.
Think this kind of brings me back to the whole idea of the Force versus the witchcraft thing. You know, the Force exhibits goals, ambitions, you know, truths through which it wishes the universe to reflect. It wants a certain something, a status quo, whether, you know, the light and the dark, they have to be in sync. The Force shows that it has some measure of, whether it be divine
Consciousness.
sentience. Yeah, that there is some thing acting on the universe. It created Anakin to fulfill a role. That means there was choice. But how does it do that? It does it by kind of using these various levers, whether it be creating Anakin, whether it be giving people kind of the foresight and future knowledge. And so I feel like the witchcraft is the using of those same tools that the Force utilizes, but it's outside of that knowledge. It's outside of that kind of communal consciousness through which, you know, the Force kind of guides all of, you know, its users.
Yeah, and that's why the Jedi look on the witchcraft as being dark, because they're using it for their own ideas instead of allowing the Force to manifest itself. Yeah. And if you look at what's going on, you have something went down that night when the fire happened, because all of a sudden they're all dead. How did they all die?
Well, that's a great transition to the next prompt, Mr. Richardson.
Our final prompt of the evening is exactly where we were going, and that was actually one of the things I want to say, Mr. Hewitt. I'll let you continue. What do you hope to see in the final 5 episodes of the season, Mr. Hewitt? Just keep going, because that's kind of what I was going to talk about.
So it's like, you know, I do want to see where this goes from here. I want to see that, you know, there's something big happen. Master Torben, he chose to die instead of confess his sins.
What kind of war crimes did he commit?
Right.
Exactly. He took the Barash vow, which was a Jedi like isolates themselves in some way. Either they go off to a different planet, or they go someplace where they can be alone. He, through meditation, he isolated himself from everybody for 10 years. And then the first time he comes out of it is when May shows up, and he decides, I'm going to take this. I'm not dealing with anything else. Boom. Something big happened. Something big happened to the point where it's going to shake the Jedi, to the point where things start to look bad publicly, and they start to look bad to themselves. They went from the whole High Republic idea of the Jedi is they wear these nice fancy robes.
They're infallible.
You know, yeah. And then all of a sudden they switch to this very monk-like, everybody's got to be the same. Everybody's got to follow all the rules. We're going to get rid of all these extra Jedi temples, and we're going to bring it down to only a couple of few. And everybody stays in Coruscant, and you go out when you need to. And and if you have to, just take your lightsaber out right away.
Right. I like the fact that they're bringing up the point that, or something I've always thought about for years, but we've always accepted it as okay. The fact that if they come across someone who is Jedi sensitive, you now leave your family, you never see them again, and you're going to join us. And it's okay. That's like been the Jedi. That's what you do. Oh, we found them, and they're going to come in.
Yeah. Why would people not like that?
No, but I mean, even us. Like, no, I've never seen people really break down we've accepted it. Okay, that's fine. But in their universe, so to speak, someone pointing out the fact that, wait, what? Like, I'm leaving for good if I have this, and the Jedi trying to tell them this has to happen, and they're we want her to stay.
Mhm.
And so you end up thinking, and then again, the online people who I care too much about, but the Jedi are looking bad. They've always said this. It's just we never seen a scenario where it's in play, so people can react with they're just taking someone's kid. I mean, they're trying to get permission, but they're
we've never
asking
talked about it from that point of view.
Again, for
Imagine
this, now,
being a
there could
parent.
There could be comics. There's things that's covered it. Sure, I guess I've never read or seen them, but in this thing I'm watching, I've actually seen it addressed, and we're wondering how that's okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
I don't know if
questioning
it's ever been
okay.
covered, but have they ever looked at the point of view from the parents whose kids are essentially just being taken from them?
That's
The
what
only
happened
time-
with her.
The only time that I've ever seen, that I've seen, I don't know if it covers it, if it comes up in any of the comics or anything, but in the Tales of the Jedi, you have baby Ahsoka, when it's that first episode when they find out that she's strong in the Force, and it seems like everyone in the village, including her parents, they seem like, oh, she's going to be a Jedi, and it's like they're cool with it. They know, they probably have an idea of what's going to happen. It probably depends on the culture, like cultures where there are.
Yeah, but what happens when there's a culture that's like, no, thank you, we don't want to do that? Do the Jedi still take the children?
No, that's the Mandalorians. Only one Mandalorian ever became a Jedi. All the rest refused.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
I was very interested to see how much agency like parents had in this. Do
Well,
you have to give your kids over?
But that's
This is what
great,
it seems like
that
during
is
this
a great
series.
scene in the show, right? When the Jedi show up and they're not exactly exerting their dominance and saying we're taking these kids, but they clearly know the kids are there. They clearly know the kids are Force sensitive.
They've been
Yep.
watching.
And their clear design is to take them to the Jedi Temple. And they are manipulating the situation and showing their capability and they're
Trying to win the
essentially
kids over with lightsabers,
well,
which would absolutely work for me, by the way.
but they're kind of soft.
I'm in.
threatening
Bye,
the
Mom, Dad.
parents. They are so institutionalized. They are so, kind of stuck in, no, we have to do it this way. There's only one way to do it, and this is what you have to do. It doesn't matter
Dogmatic,
what you
yeah.
think. Yeah, and I think that's definitely an interesting kind of showcase for where the Jedi are at this point.
Yeah, I feel like one of the I don't want to say trope because I don't know what it is called, but a very popular theme in modern storytelling is shades of gray. So I think the Jedi are just going through their shades of gray storytelling moment right now.
Yeah.
I need to see more about, why he took his own life. I need to see what actually happened to them. I refuse to believe the fire just took all of them out.
Yeah.
So,
Didn't
you
happen.
know,
the
even though
Jedi
you see,
will go
I
with
see,
it. You know that, right?
I think
Right.
either the next episode or the episode after that is going to be the same night, but from the Jedi's point of view.
Yeah, I think it was this. I think the Sith were involved in killing whatever happened.
I think
I think because if the Jedi kind of got the feeling that these girls were special
Well-
in that sense, that I feel like the dark side of the Force tickled that, magic and felt it too. And I
This
think
is
that's
where you get into dangerous territory because Obi-Wan states in Phantom Menace there hasn't been a Sith found in 1,000 years. So if they really step too far into we want to set up Darth Plagueis, or we want to set up Darth Revan, or any of these other kind of more popular Sith lords kind of lurking in the background, they really need to walk on eggshells. They really need to do it exactly right. They need to do it where May isn't even aware that she's learning Sith techniques.
well that's when Soul had her and he was reading her mind. He said, "You don't even know who it is. Even if you wanted to tell me, you don't even know who this person is."
Yeah.
So it's there. I think, and I think that this is also going to tie into like the beginning of the downfall of the Jedi is that
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a major cover up
For
because
sure.
there's already a cover up because they didn't even know, it wasn't even in the file that Osha had a twin sister.
But here's the thing. I thought about this too when he said it. We have three options. A, we actively ignore what was said in the previous movie and just hope people like us don't care enough because they're trying to appeal to another younger generation. You have option B, which is just flat out everyone involved in this does not survive it. So then the Sith is out there, but no one actually is around to tell this story basically further down the line. Or C, the massive cover up, which I kind of thought it was going to be, if we're trying to stick with avoiding people being upset. But then they've said a few times that, listen, we can't be too boxed in anymore because now we're, whatever. That's why they moved back in the past. Who knows? I don't know what makes more people upset. But it's obviously one of those three. I don't think it's going to end with everyone dying. So I think it's like more likely at the end a cover up as well. That's why he didn't know that as well. What other stuff you guys looking forward to as we wrap this up?
I would like to look forward to seeing Yoda. He should be like 700. He should be sprightly, running around. Should be like 700.
Walking around with like a tank top on, just jacked.
Without his cane.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Yoda at all.
He breaks a hip, and now that's why he's got his cane. But no, that is. I want to. I don't know if you guys were doing this, but whenever they showed the Jedi Temple walking around with those, I was looking for Hunan.
You're
like
pausing and looking.
I'm like, where is Hunan? I'm like, is Yoda walking around back there? I just want to see that. Because I think it would be interesting in terms of their tie-in, but there's no merch out for this, so I would like.
Yeah.
Cheers.
I would hope he's not. I would like to not have him in it at all, only because if there's a massive cover up, he can't be knowing anything of this.
You don't want Yoda. You don't want Yoda with that bad press.
You want him to be infallible? Is that what you want?
No, Yoda's the king of cover up, man. He was there when the Emperor took over. And what did he do? He literally ran to a hole in the swamp and didn't say jack to anybody for decades.
I know, he already twists his words.
He talked normal back then.
I like the idea.
He's walking around. He's like, "What's up, homie?"
As Mr. Hewitt pointed out in the beginning, there's Jedi temples everywhere. Can he just not be involved in this? Like he just happened to not be involved. That's my. But we all have our opinions.
Initially, when the show was announced, and I knew it was during the High Republic era, and Yoda's still a Jedi Knight, he hasn't been placed on the council yet. I kind of wanted him to show up in a scene, and now that as I'm seeing the show kind of develop, and that it's this kind of really interesting kind of, I do still think it is a bit of a whodunit because I really do want to find out who is behind the person who's behind.
It's the herbalist.
But
the shopkeeper.
Yeah, and then there is also the why done it aspect of it. So there's all these different kind of mysteries that are still yet to be uncovered. And I'm like, I don't want a kind of fun, dopey Easter egg, a Yoda appearance to distract from it.
Like a wink, wink, wink.
Yeah, like I just at this point I just don't need it. I think this show is would do fine without needing.
You don't need the fan service.
Yeah.
Now I remember reading about this show, months ago. They talked about how this show is going to be from a kind of Sith point of view. And we were talking about how when Obi-Wan did say, we haven't seen a Sith in 1,000 years. But the key word is they haven't seen a Sith. And so this is kind of...
He's like John Cena.
Exactly. But it's like the bubblings and the rumblings of this is where those Sith kind of start. And it's the idea that Sith have been in the periphery the past 1,000 years. The Jedi even probably just haven't really thought to look for them or thought, oh, we beat them, we're done. I don't know.
And that definitely kind of highlights kind of their downfall, right? It's the arrogance, it's their blind spot, the fact that they are doubtful even after they report that they've seen a Sith, and they're like, "Are you sure?" So the idea that they're
Qui-Gon's like, "I saw a Sith." They're like, "You need a drug test."
So the idea here that that this is that there were Sith underpinnings, right? That there's kind of percolating underneath, but because they're so concerned about the way that people perceive the Jedi Order, they'll stop giving us their children. We'll stop having new recruits if people don't trust us. We can't just say, we slaughtered an entire.
You gotta feed the machine.
town of people, they're gonna miss it. They're gonna miss the evidence that's right there in front of them that there was something, this malevolent force, that kind of drove, this conflict. So that's kind of where my mind's at. That we're just that the Sith will definitely have their fingerprints on this, but the Jedi are so concerned with their mirror image, with themselves that
Their
they're just gonna,
PR, yeah.
yep, that they're gonna
All right.
completely
Now,
miss it.
guys, I want to wrap this up with one question for each of you. It's the same question. Do you guys think they will stick the landing here?
I'm going to go with no.
Why?
Because I honestly did not like the way any of the other shows ended. Like, granted that their season,
It's
seasonally,
really hard
the
to
thing,
stick a landing.
I did not like the way Mandalorian ended season 3. I didn't. And I'm trying to even think about how Kenobi ended. Book of Boba Fett was, no good to begin with. So
I like the way Andor ended. I really liked Andor, but
that's different though. But yes, okay. So Andor kind of, but it left knowing that we're going to have a season. Another, when they put that out, it said it was only going to be this many
2 seasons.
Yeah. So it's like,
and it's like, I don't know if this is going to be multiple seasons or if we're just getting one season out of this,
right?
And the same thing
comic
with
book problem when things are always in Act 2, it's hard to get an Act 3.
I mean, Don, to answer your question with this, do I think they'll stick the landing? Having no idea what right now, again, the mystery, I don't really know what they're going for right now. I'm assuming it's going to end with some sort of revelation of the Sith, maybe. If already the stuff they've done so far, I was not expecting. Some of this stuff that I've seen is a different version. Like we talked about how they're talking about, the dynamics with them, the arrogance even more, the idea there's a possible cover up, that they're ignoring things. It's just basic stuff, the gray area that they've never done before. And we're 3 episodes in. So assuming they continue down the path of a different version of this or them acting differently and the end of the High Republic.
Are you going to be positive?
Yeah, I think they'll probably stick the landing. I'm already not expecting this to go so far, unless it's something insane. So here's how they won't stick the landing. If we find out that the fire actually just killed all of them and the Jedi
and Yoda
killed
shows
himself
up,
was just upset because the people died, then I'll lose my mind. But if you give me something else that I'm not expecting, it should stick the landing. Right? I don't see where this is going. By not knowing where it's going, I can't even kind of map it.
Good.
It's probably going to be shocking.
I love not knowing where a show is going to go.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's not as clean as some of the other things.
Josh, what do you think?
I actually would argue most of the Star Wars shows have stuck the landing. The only one I would say would be the Obi-Wan show, where you created a scene where, all of your characters that have plot armor are the only ones that are under threat. So that was a completely dead and void action sequence. There's no drama to.
You mean you didn't think Princess Leia was going to die?
or Uncle Owen or Aunt Beru or Baby Luke? Like all of the characters that can't be hurt are the only ones that were under any threat. Yeah. They could have pulled in random townspeople and put them under harmed, in the crosshairs, and it would have given stakes to the scene.
Right.
But Andor absolutely sticks the landing, and as bad as Book of Boba Fett was, and it is bad. Those last couple episodes, because the last few episodes focus on the Mandalorian and all the Luke and Baby Yoda stuff, and then the last episode,
his name is Grogu.
Yes, where we go back to Boba Fett, was like the absolute pinnacle of just fun, cool Western trope, fan servicey, Boba Fett riding the Rancor. It was just cool. I gotta be honest.
No, that action
I just thought it was fun.
Cool. I just didn't like the whole I'm gonna homestead now until the next MacGuffin comes along.
You're talking about for the Mandalorian. Yeah.
The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the season 3 of the Mandalorian was definitely a weaker ending. They killed Moff Gideon in a real
allegedly.
Yeah, definitely allegedly, because I really hope that's not it, because that was pretty.
No, I think they just need to be done with it.
Mandalorian season 1, Mandalorian season 2, they really stuck the landing. And then Ahsoka has its failings. It's a little boring. It does nothing to on ramp an audience.
Oh,
that aren't familiar with the animated stuff. at least it, where it ends is really suspenseful and really cool, and I'm looking forward to the epic space battle that we're cleared to get in the next
Mhm.
season. So all of these shows, I think, have done a pretty good job of ending in a good place. Again, not everything's perfect, but they've done a decent. I think they have a track record of positivity. So this one, everything Miss Richard was saying, in that there's so much new, we don't know where it's going. These are different characters, although it falls. One of my little nitpicks is they gave all of the main three characters real short, easy to remember names, and then everyone else on the periphery gets like the weird, like 4-syllable alienish name, but they
Yeah,
all
so if
blend
you have a
together.
really long name, you're probably not going to make it. It's like wearing a red
Yeah.
shirt.
Yes,
Wow.
definitely.
Way to bring it back around.
No, it's good. I'm giving it a thumbs up. I think they're going to do it.
Trevor, go
I
ahead.
I think it's going to stick the landing, and I think it's going to be it's probably going to be end up being as controversial as everyone seems to think the whole series is right now, and that's just the thing that's has made me out of my mind over the past week, ever since the first 2 episodes, and I'm seeing all these rumblings online with all these people complaining about all this stuff, and making it out like, oh, Disney has finally killed Star Wars. This is it. It's all
Star
over.
Wars went woke.
Yeah, and it's like I watched the talking about the 3rd episode, and it's like I watched it, and it's like the thing that is like driving people nuts is the fact that the mother Anastasia and mother Coral had that moment where she put her hand on her cheek, and they're like, oh, that's it. That's it. See, they're together, and this is what this whole coven's all about, and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, have you people who are complaining about this? Have you ever seen actual women who you're like who are around you? Women, that's how they communicate with each other. The people touch each other, and it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean absolutely anything. She's trying to calm her down and let her know, hey, these kids are fine. They're okay.
Well, I definitely think it meant something, and I'm perfectly fine with that in my Star Wars. I think that's the fandom right now, and in fact, that's fandom across many different media. Video games, there is a clash of cultures. Comic books, for the last 4 or 5 years, has been a clash of cultures, and there are those that tolerate, and there are those that don't. And I think Disney right now is they have put their flag in the ground and saying, we're just not going to shy away from representation.
Mhm.
These are like my shop. I have people of all makes and creeds and colors walk through that door, and every single one of them is treated exactly the same, like a fan of something. You're in my store for a reason, and that's perfectly okay. And nobody complains about the fact that the X-Men have been used as proxies for queer representation for literally the last 40 years, since the 70s. Initially it was more, it was probably in the
Civil
60s,
rights
it was more
and
civil
stuff,
rights.
but-
But once you get to post Giant Size X-Men #1,
It's
like,
the greatest
fundamentally,
allegory. Yeah, absolutely.
Chris Claremont was writing the queer allegory. He was writing, or even he was writing from the Jewish perspective, in terms of just the dangers of what happens when you judge, the dangers of what
It's-
happens when you put yourself above someone else just for who they are.
It's like
And
how can people complain
what is one
about
thing to do with another?
right? And how can people complain about Star Wars being woke? Because that's exactly what New Hope was. It was. They were talking about fascism. They were talking about how unbelievably horrible it is, and
Yep.
how everybody, you stand up for just being okay and being people and not being taken over by all these crazy Brits who have taken over with their space lord.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that you have like what is fundamentally a very loving familial relationship between R2 and C3PO. They don't exactly act like brothers.
Mhm.
They don't act like, but there are machines, so there's a difference in terms of how they appreciate one another. So it's not romanticized in the same way, but like there's distinct love. There's distinct love between those characters. You have a giant hairy alien. Like there's all like weird crap everywhere.
Right, but
And
then if
there's
someone's gay, oh my God, that's too far.
Yeah.
The Wookiee is walking around.
With no
Naked.
pants.
Listen,
There's too many, and all of a sudden now it's like, oh, there's too many women. What? Like, have you not paid attention to Star Wars at all? Who is the strongest character in New Hope? One of the strongest characters in New
who
Hope.
if you
rewrote
have a
Empire and
saved-
made it great.
Yeah.
Carrie
if you have a
a woman.
if you have a character who's gay and they're a Jedi, people lose their mind. It's now if the story arc is the Jedis wouldn't accept me because I'm gay. I get the fact that now you're on a soapbox preaching and people get a little bit. That is never what's happening. They could just be this way. It's okay. We could have a couple of people who are black or Asian or whatever in there. It's fine. Like it's
when you
not a
see-
central point of the story.
Right.
That when you
exactly.
look at them,
It's-
like, oh my God, if it is, I understand why people would say, oh, that's not normal. That's more of a Star Trek thing, honestly, when it comes down to that, accepting different groups and
True.
near
Very
that
true.
sort of thing. But
The-
with either way, it's fine. But like you said, Mr. Hewitt, people get upset. And honestly, we're in a world where people just want to be mad and write something because they know people respond to it. And that's what it turns into.
Well, it's outrage culture. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the feeling that I got that like we made it as a culture was I was watching television and there was an ad for some random drug, one of those medical ads like, hey, if you've got, this super toe cancer, then this drug could save your life and give you a billion side effects. But in that ad was just two guys walking down the street holding hands. They show all the people in their everyday
Well,
lives.
that's real
which is-
representation.
And I was like, whoa, we actually did something where we just acknowledged that people are different and exist in the world and are just comfortable being, okay with this. And like that to me, and it's like, I expect to see that more now in my media. I expect to see, that, different relationships and different cultures in the media because I don't want to pretend as though I'm the only one that exists in the world.
And it's I don't know if it's just that because I'm an open person or that I've been in theater and arts for most of my life, so I've gotten to meet people from all different backgrounds and have different ways about them that when I watched episode 3, that wasn't even anywhere on my mind. It had nothing to do with the episode I was watching. You know what really stood out to me with episode 3 was when all of a sudden the witches started chanting, and they were chanting to the music that was in the background, and it just wove in. That stood out to me. That was like, this is new for Star Wars. I've never seen this in Star Wars.
Once a music teacher, always a music teacher.
I loved the horns. I thought it was the first of the shows to really get the Star Wars sound right. Just horns. Loved the brass.
Yep.
I Cup, answer your own question.
Yeah. So I'm going to wrap this up by saying, for Disney's sake, they better nail this landing. It's very important for Star Wars as a kind of product that they get positive buzz coming from this, because, other than Andor, there hasn't been a lot of like real hits. So they could certainly use one.
All right, so we've broken it down. We discussed it. We've solved racism, sexism. All the isms have been wrapped up today.
You're welcome, everybody.
We took care of it. We locked it down.
Thank goodness.
For Mr. Hewitt, Mr. Darby, Mr. McDonald, and Mr. G, I am Mr. Richardson. Thank you always for listening to our podcast and taking time out of your day to hang out with us. Go to Red Shirt Comics, listen to music in the background of TV shows, listen to our podcast, tell your friends. Buses are in the circle. We got to get out of here. I'll talk to you next time. Cue the music.